guys, hold on. I just got challenged over here by my producer. I just made a piece on Jon Jones fighting at the White House, and my largest contention is, yeah, go ahead. I think that Jon should be able to fight at the White House as long as he's sincere in that he's back. He's the same guy that we once knew that will fight anybody at any time. Not the guy we recently met that didn't want to get in there with Tom Aspinall. We just got to make sure that old Jon is back. So my producer said, hey, listen, who would that somebody else be? And it's not quite what you think. Like, you don't need to look at Tom Aspinall as number one and then default down to number two if you're bringing Jon Jones back. You don't have to do that at all, particularly because Jon's been out for a while. Jon doesn't have a belt of any kind. And most importantly, and this is the one that's really going to stick in your craw, Jon Jones is not ranked. So you would not have to put him with the number three. As a matter of fact, if you were to put him with a number three or a number two or even a number one, you're going to have a hard time explaining to the audience how you got there. Because for years upon years, you have explained that a guy that's not ranked cannot step in and fight for a title. You've argued for years if a guy is not ranked, he should not get a top 10 opponent. He should have to earn it and have to work his way to it. Now, we get where that's ridiculous, and we get where that isn't meant to apply to Jon Jones. But it's the situation we find ourselves in nonetheless. So if Jon is to come back and it's not against Tom, and he's got to fight against somebody, who should that somebody be? Right. Prior to the White House event, he's got to fight with somebody. Who should that somebody be? And it does make my mind wander just because now you've really got to pick them of matches. I'm not sure we've ever seen a heavyweight that can deal with Jon, not just ones under the roster right now. I'm not sure we've ever seen somebody that can deal with Jon, but in many ways, with that in mind, so what difference does it make? You're not rattling the rankings and showing some integrity or lack of integrity to our rankings. You didn't rank Jon. So you could put him with a brand new 24-year-old kid making a debut if you wanted. You could also shove them all the way up the line to a 2, 3, or 1 and turn around, hang your hat on sacrimony and say, yeah, but it's Jon. Nobody's going to disagree. But as long as we can agree that the one thing that we're not going to disagree on is that it doesn't really matter who the opponent is, it just matters that he can fog a mirror and that Jon make the walk at the requested time. If you start doing that, look, the hardest opponent for Jon Jones has not changed. The hardest stylistic matchup for Jon Jones, and this has been true for the better part of half a decade, is Curtis Blaydes. Now, you let that sink in and you do with that what you want, but as far as matchup goes, the highest achievement that Jon ever had in wrestling was something called a Junior College National Championship, a very good and hard achievement. Curtis Blaydes' highest achievement is that same exact title, one weight class apart. Curtis Blaydes is also a Junior College National Champion. Jon did it at 197 pounds, and Curtis did it a weight class up at heavyweight. You probably didn't know that. Jon does very well due to his reach. Jon does very well because he's a wrestler, but he also understands the strikes. I'm explaining Curtis Blaydes to you. And Jon is an amazing competitor. That when the lights are on and when it's time to shine, he does that better than anyone. And yes, that would include Curtis Blaydes. But I'm just sharing with you, if you're able to make matchups, I wouldn't leave that one out. You could also do one that would just be a lot of fun. You could bring in an unranked, almost 40 Jon Jones and put him against a larger fan favorite 40-year-old Derek Lewis. Now we're just having fun. We're proving our point, though. We're proving our point, and in some ways we're safer. Look, if we're going to put Jon on the White House card, Jon just has to do this first. You don't want to then go stub your toe with this. You don't want to just put him in there with somebody that maybe he doesn't get over on. What if he goes down? What if he gets beat? Is that enough shine for this guy to go right into a world title main event on the White House lawns? Maybe, but it's still the risk you're taking. It's still the game that you're playing. So who would you put Jon with? Would you put him with a younger? Would you look at, say, Almeida, for example? Volkov has been fighting very, very well lately. Volkov's got a bit of a name. I would like something good to happen to Volkov. I think that Volkov should be fighting for the world title. I think Volkov beat Ciryl Gane and had a decision taken from him. That's what I think. But if you were to bring Jon back, you got to test his sincerity. Because you got to do it you got to do it either coming or going. If you put him on the White House card, which is extremely unlikely to happen. But if you did, you would then need a guarantee. Hey, putting you on this card, but then in November, we're back at the Garden, and I want you to defend. And if you're the champion, you're going to defend against anybody I say. That's how this game is played. You duck nobody. And you have done that in the past. You walked away from a belt because there was a guy you didn't want to fight. I need to know that won't happen. I need to know if you come out of the White House card unscathed, you defend at Madison Square Garden. And so now you're taking the word of somebody who has previously broken their word to you. And that's the reason that order doesn't quite work. There's a misconception within the storyline as it is. I will hear about the biggest stars in all sport. I'll hear you talk about them, but you don't actually know. And I don't say that to be condescending, but Jon Jones does not have a single record and never did. They will do pay-per-views in top 10. The biggest pay-per-view that Jon Jones ever had was Part 2 against Daniel Cormier, and it once upon a time was in the top 10. It got knocked out, though. He does not currently hold any. He does not currently hold or ever did hold a live gate record. He does not hold or currently hold or used to hold a record for merchandising. I'm only sharing for you, Jon is not the star that you like to pretend that he is, but it does look like Jon's got a fight right now. And it's against Tom. And for us to continue this conversation, Tom is going to have to go out and handle his business against Surreal. But if he does that, that does turn into a mega fight. Why take that fight to the White House? That part I've never really understood. A lot of that is you guys talking. Do you really want to be at a building that doesn't exist? Warming up in a locker room that doesn't exist? Fighting in a venue that isn't real? I mean, you're not going to have a roof over it. You're not going to have bathrooms and it's all going to be outside. Is it something really as great as you're make-believing it to be? It would certainly be historic and it would certainly be something special. But Jon versus Tom would have been the biggest heavyweight fight of all time. And it also would have come with the largest check ever written to a heavyweight in the history of the UFC. It seemed that it already had some very special things. And those weren't enough. So would you take his word on the backside? Hey, I'll give you the fight, but you're promising me another fight, and I don't even know who that opponent is going to be. We'll look at it at that time, but you're not going to complain. You're going to fight anybody because that's what our champions do. Do you give me your word that we're going to do that? Or do I have to put you in the ring with somebody first so that you can show me your sincerity? And if so, who would you put Jon against? And don't forget, you've got the entire roster to choose from because Jon Jones is not ranked.